Hey everybody, it's Amit. Today it's time to finally end the debate. And I don't know why this is a debate, to be honest. I think this is a really weird debate. I think it should not become a debate. And if you look me up on Google, I was a national debating champion when I was in high school and a national debating champion coach because I coached a bunch of students when I was in college. So I think I know a little bit about debate. And one of the things that's important about debate is understanding argumentation and the ability to communicate arguments to get other people to care. And the debate for why Netflix has even a sliver of a compelling argument that is communicated meaningfully enough for me to feel that Netflix is better slash bigger slash more important than YouTube is asinine. The argument is horrible. So today we're going to destroy that debate. Now, there are three things we have to talk about in this debate, three segments to understanding Netflix versus YouTube. And within these segments, we're going to embed a lot of numbers to understand them. Number one is longevity. Which platform has a longer lifespan and a better trajectory for the platform and company overall? Number two is algorithm. These algorithms control the basis for our attention. So which company actually has a better algorithm that actually recommends content in a meaningful way? Because if you can't recommend content, then you really have no purpose in terms of even being a content company. And three, which platform is ultimately better for the creator and the creator economy, because the creator economy seems like one day it has the potential to be $1 trillion economy. And I know that sounds really crazy because a lot of people think creator economies are just like advertising and subscriptions, but there is a lot of stuff happening in 2021 that we've seen a preview of with NFTs, etc. And I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger over time. So first of all, let's talk about why we're having this debate. I have been in conversations before where people have legitimately tried to tell me that Netflix is better than YouTube. And I'm sitting there like dumbfounded. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, are you on drugs, right? Like, what are you saying? How could Netflix be bigger and better than YouTube? Now, some biases I have to disclose. I've been a YouTube fan since 2005. Literally when they came out, I was only 8 years old, but I remember my mom used to do some tutoring in her house. She used to do math tutoring. And this guy came over to my house and he was like, hey, did you see the new WWE match? I'm like, no, we don't have pay-per-view. And he's like, oh, you don't need to have pay-per-view. You could just go on YouTube. I was like, YouTube? What's YouTube? He was like, go to youtube.com and then type it in. I remember the exact copyrighted video that I watched on YouTube, and I was so happy that I was able to watch it on YouTube, and I found this platform. And ever since that day, literally with the beginning of YouTube, I have been watching YouTube. I've been a YouTube junkie. It's literally, 2005, 2021. It's been 16 years, and that platform has consumed my attention probably every single day. I mean, you talk about a platform that has daily active users. I mean, that platform is phenomenal. It's why I'm actually creating content on YouTube right now, and kind of why it was ultimately inevitable that I would become a YouTube creator, because I just love this platform so much in terms of the ability for creators to get recognized and discovered, etc. So when someone was telling me that Netflix has a bigger chance than YouTube, obviously I'm biased to YouTube, but I just couldn't understand the argument because I also don't understand what Netflix's value proposition is. I really don't get their value proposition at all, and we're going to talk about it in this video today. Now, the reason I think this debate is important is because Netflix does bring in about $7 billion a quarter. My family does subscribe to Netflix, right? So I am a little hypocritical here, but I don't consume Netflix at the scale at which I consume YouTube. And that sort of informs a lot of my biases around YouTube, but also I think a lot of my knowledge about why a typical person like myself wouldn't consume a premium subscription service over something like YouTube, and what that ultimately means for general mass market consumers and how they consume content. So first thing we're going to talk about today, longevity. Look, I think YouTube obviously wins this argument, and it's very simple. Netflix has to pay to get content. I think in 2020, they spent $20 billion to get content. That is ridiculous. YouTube doesn't pay anything to get content. They have to pay for more servers because they have 500 hours of video uploaded per minute, but they don't have to pay for people to get content. And even when they do try to pay to those YouTube originals, no one watches that. That stuff's trash. And I don't know why YouTube even invests in that stuff. YouTube should only invest in making sure creators have even better ways to get more videos on the platform. This is a really important thing to understand. If Netflix has to pay over $20 billion a year to, and let's talk about how they get content. They either have to license that content. This is with The Office and Friends and these type of A-class shows that really brought them a lot of attention over the past 5-6 years onto the platform, or they have to create their own content. So they either have to give an NBC I think they paid like $500 million to get the rights to Office for like 4 or 5 years or something. Or they have to make their own content. This is like the Orange is the New Blacks of the world and the U's of the world. That was actually a good show. I actually enjoyed that show. And all these other types of things, right? So Netflix is in a predicament here when it comes to content. And every major tech platform that exists, I don't think has this predicament. They have a problem of getting content that people are interested in, but they don't necessarily have the predicament of buying that content or finding that content. So when you think of something like Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, etc., they have all developed niches around the community that they've ultimately built, the platform that they have ultimately built. Some of those platforms you could say are probably not even a community. Like when you think of Instagram, you don't think of the Instagram community because literally the entire world, like 3 billion people are on it. But there's sub communities on Instagram that have developed their own niches in which people engage in the platform in particular ways. So Instagram Reels, TikTok videos, Twitter and Twitter threads and tweets. All of these forms of content are something that the platforms don't have to buy. They just have to give the creators something that they're looking for, i.e. attention, and the medium in which those creators ultimately need to engage with the platform in order to get effective results, in order to generate the content. They don't have to go out there and buy Twitter threads or buy Instagram Reels because these are user-generated content platforms. Netflix is in a different predicament. Same predicament as Amazon Prime and Hulu and HBO Max, where they have to go find interesting stories and create those interesting stories if they can't find to license them and then get them on the platform. I think philosophically, and I also think this is justified in the numbers because, again, YouTube, 500 hours of video uploaded per minute, 2 billion monthly active users. The user-generated content is just always going to win over everything else. Like, I don't know. I just fundamentally believe in that. User-generated content is always going to win over everything else. And the reason for this is because you don't have a predicament of finding users to get content. Like, the users are always going to exist. And I'll talk about this more when we get into the creator economy point. But YouTube simply does not have a problem when it comes to getting people to upload content on the platform, because the platform is like this open source vehicle for anyone to use it and upload anything about it, which means at a fundamental level, I think Netflix has a problem long-term wise finding interesting content, whereas YouTube doesn't. Now, the counter argument here is that the quality of the content suffers, obviously, because user-generated content and like your random cat videos aren't as good as Netflix. I would just, again, philosophically disagree with this. I think it is very obvious, it is not a debate anymore, that our attention for random cat videos can scale to the point where we are able to binge more and more random cat videos, and it would make up the time as if we were to watch some Catwoman movie on Netflix. I do think user-generated content, the content you are consuming right now, is a lot more interesting a lot of the times than content that you see that big media companies pay for. Additionally, this goes back into, and I'll get into this more in the algorithm point, the ability to find content in a more meaningful way. I do think that on something like a Netflix, you have Queen's Gambit. On something on a YouTube, you type in chess and you have the entire world to be able to consume on the platform when it comes to chess, versus on Netflix, when you type in chess, you get Queen's Gambit. And I think if that user does not like Queen's Gambit, immediately they have no value to the platform anymore, because in that moment, that user was interested in chess and Netflix was not able to provide them anything other than this Queen's Gambit premium show that user might not really care about. So at a fundamental level, user-generated content to me always wins when it comes to Netflix. In the context of longevity, I think this means YouTube survives over Netflix. If YouTube was to be a public entity by itself, I think it would demolish Netflix in this regard, because first of all, it's a tech platform, so it would just be valued, I think, much more highly than Netflix, which is a media company at the end of the day. Like, Netflix is not a platform. It's a media company, which means they have to buy media and get you to consume that media and get money from you, i.e. the subscription, in order to consume that the media. YouTube just has to say, hey, post whatever you want. And then you kind of have to do the work of generating an audience and building an audience and getting more people to find your content on the platform, which means you are an ambassador for the company in and of itself by getting, getting your audience to come onto the platform, or building an audience and bringing them onto the platform as well, or building an audience on YouTube in and of itself. And the interesting thing here is YouTube doesn't pay you to do any of that, right? Netflix has to pay the actors of the show the money to go be in the show, and then they'll like tweet about it on Instagram to go watch the show. YouTube doesn't have to do that. You get the attention as for uploading content on YouTube, which is the fundamental trade-off that does not exist on a thing like Netflix, which is why I think already this argument makes no sense. YouTube has given the world the ability to upload their videos. The world gets attention for that, which means the world will now generate all of this momentum to get people to come to this one place to consume that content at scale. Netflix isn't able to do that. Netflix has to go buy all of that attention in order for that attention to make any sense, which means from a longevity perspective, if you were going to put them one to one for the long term, I think YouTube obviously wins just because the nature of it being a platform over a media company. All right, number 2 is the algorithm. Now, the algorithm is fundamentally important because without an algorithm, you don't have a recommendation system to be able to get you to consume content. So what is an algorithm at its most fundamental level? An algorithm is a machine learning, artificial intelligence embodied system within a platform that tries to recognize what a user ultimately wants to consume based upon really trillions of different metrics. Now, the algorithm on Netflix, in my opinion, is non-existent. I want to see a debate in the comments. I don't think Netflix has an algorithm. Now, Netflix says they spend billions of dollars with engineers on an algorithm. I don't think they do. Because when I go on Netflix, I can't find a single thing that's interesting to me. So, for example, I was interested in the show You. On Netflix, right? You is about this guy who stalks this girl or whatever. I don't know what that says about me, but nonetheless, it's an interesting show, and I really enjoyed it. Season 3 was horrible though, but season 2 and season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2 was like or whatever, and I watched that show, I consumed it, and then I wanted to see if there was something else on Netflix. There's nothing really that piqued my interest, and I'm going through the whole thing. I mean, literally on Thanksgiving break, I was with my cousin and my sister, and we're like scrolling through this plot. We're like trying to find something that can capture our attention. Nothing. Like nothing. When I mean nothing, I mean nothing. And I think it's because of a variety of reasons, which is why YouTube's algorithm is more superior. Number 1, Netflix has content that they only have on the platform, which means they can't find content from external places. External places meaning individual creators that have uploaded content to the platform. So because Netflix doesn't have the ability to reach within all those different places to find a video that's meaningful for you or a show that's meaningful for you, they can only show you what they really have to promote. So if they bought this new show like Tiger King for $10 million and I don't care about Tiger King, I still haven't watched it yet because I just don't care and I'm not one of those Netflix junkies that's just going to watch whatever Netflix throws in front of me, then it's going to be hard for them to find something better for me to consume. And at the end of the day, if they can't find something for me to consume, then there's really no reason for me to consume on Netflix. You think of something like a YouTube, they have search. And search is the most powerful thing on the planet because when you are searching for something, that means you want to consume it. And even if you didn't find what you were looking for, even if you found something different, the tangential keywords associated with the trillions of different algorithmic variables that YouTube has associated with the particular thing you search, which means if you search chess and YouTube finds a bunch of different videos that might not be exactly about the concept of chess, but are tangentially related because let's say chess people are smart and then YouTube finds some video of some smart person talking to a robot and you are just interested in it at that moment because when you're thinking of chess, you're thinking about smart people. Like they just find ways to get stuff that's making you interested in what the thing you were searching for is, and then they put it in front of you. And they put it in front of you in such a way that it becomes almost impossible for you to not click on it. And if you've consumed YouTube or you're an avid consumer of YouTube, then you know what this feeling feels like, where you find a video and you're just like, wow, this is the most perfect video. I've been looking for this video. I've been waiting to discover this type of creator. I'm so happy that I found this person. I'm so happy I found this channel. And you start binging a lot more content that's similar to it. And now YouTube gets more and more pieces of data on you. Oh, you search for that motivational video. You search for this video in terms of what you want to do with your life when you're in your early 20s. So we know we're going to recommend you another motivational speaker that's talking about what you should do in your early life when you're 20s. And guess what? There's a 99% probability that if you just watch the video about what to do in your 20s and you just watch the video about motivation, then the combination of those two is going to get you to click as long as the thumbnail and title is pretty interesting enough. And we do a pretty good job as a company, I'm speaking from YouTube's perspective, because they literally in the analytics for creators make sure they let them know what thumbnails and what titles are working. The click-through rate is a universal metric that is so embodied within the spirit of YouTube. Sometimes it results in clickbaiting and sensationalizing, which is bad, but most of the time it really results in people optimizing stuff that is click-worthy, i.e. gets our attention. Netflix spends millions of dollars A/B testing all these their version of thumbnails that hopefully can get you to click. I saw some random article that they spent a lot of money on just like testing like millions of different frames from the show and then like adding a title on it and just seeing if that looks attractive and doing all this data analysis. And YouTube's like, oh, well, you can make whatever thumbnail you want. We're just going to tell you if people click on it or not. Boom. There's the data. And then you optimize and you figure it out. And guess what? If people aren't clicking on your video, well, it's not like YouTube's struggling. They have 500 hours of video uploaded per minute, which means there's plenty of more opportunities for them to find a piece of content that is meaningful enough for that end consumer. Because if they know what they're searching for, they already know a little bit more about that person and they can put something in front of them that is meaningful to consume. I think search-based algorithms simply matter more than anything that Netflix has, especially when Netflix doesn't have any user-generated content to match with you based upon those search terms. Like if I search for, action movie, I mean, Netflix is going to show me some stuff about action, and then maybe if I clicked on something, they show me something else that's interesting. But it's at the end of the day, there's not an infinite supply of content that Netflix can show me. And I believe on YouTube, there's an infinite supply of videos in any niche you want. Again, 2 billion people come to this platform per month. That's ultimately going to get your attention, which is why the algorithm is more important. Now, before we go to our last point about creator opportunity, which YouTube, yes, wins. So it's 3 for 3 in this video. And if you have any disagreements with that, I would love to hear it in the comments, because I truly don't get how anyone could think that Netflix is better than YouTube. But, I guess if there's an argument, I'm willing to debate it. Let's talk about a little bit more about their revenues and sort of what they did in 2021. So in 2021, YouTube, hear this out. Q1, $6 billion in revenue. YouTube by itself, not Google, YouTube. Q2, $7 billion in revenue. Q3, $7.2 billion in revenue. $7.2 billion. So let's say the fourth quarter, they make another $7 billion. So that's around 7 times 4, 28, around $27 billion. Because they had $6 billion in the first one. $27 billion. Netflix, Q1 2021, $7.1 billion. Q2, $7.3 billion. Q4, $7.4 billion. So Netflix is a little bit ahead, but by a little. So let's say YouTube ends with 27 billion. Netflix ends with a full 27 to 28 billion. Let's say Netflix is 2 billion more in revenue. That is ridiculous. Okay. That is absolutely insane. YouTube's not even an entity by itself. It's within the machine of Google, and Netflix is producing the same amount of revenue that YouTube is creating within another company. Like, that blows my mind. And now there's a couple of other characteristics to understand about this. Netflix is pure subscription based. They don't get paid other than you giving them a monthly fee. YouTube's business model to me is phenomenal. It's ads and a premium. So for example, I pay for YouTube Premium. It's $12 a month because I enjoy and I consume YouTube a lot. So I don't want to see the ads, so I just get YouTube Premium. For those who consume ads, which is the majority of the world, there is a business where YouTube doesn't have to get you to take out your credit card at all to pay for them and to do that complicated process. YouTube just gives you the content, makes you wait 5 to 10, 15 seconds. And by the way, a lot of these you can just skip and get what you want. And boom, YouTube makes money. And on top of that, the creator makes money. And we're going to get into that in a second. So I think from just a pure revenue perspective, that's really important to understand. Now, the question is, how do they scale? Again, going back to the longevity point, YouTube's not going anywhere. Netflix isn't going anywhere, but Netflix has to grow. Now, Netflix says, well, there's another 800 million households that they can go after worldwide, and they can be on all those services, whatever. YouTube has the entire world consistently posting videos on its platform, which means, and YouTube's also on every Android device. And I think there's about 3 billion people that don't have the internet yet. Most of them are not going to be having iPhones. Most of them are going to have Android devices with YouTube preloaded. And everyone consumes video, right? Not everyone consumes some binging show on Netflix where you have to watch all 7 seasons. Everyone consumes short form video. So if everyone consumes short form video, if everyone's always going to be on mobile phones for the foreseeable future, and I would say, it's going to take another decade before we get rid of the phone and move to AR sets, and even if that happens, and then everyone is going to go to one place to search for content, which means the data that YouTube's going to get is only going to get better and better and better, and more people are going to get on the internet at the tune of 3 billion over the next 2 decades. Then you've got a really strong formula for something that can scale the advertising and the premium subscriptions at a monumental scale. Whereas on Netflix, you have this challenge of getting enough quality premium content to justify people paying for it when there's so many other entertainment sources. And sure, you can say, well, Netflix has to spend money to make money, and they have a lot of revenue coming in. My question is simply a question of how many premium things will they be able to buy in order for that to be meaningful enough, right? Yes, they've got the billions of dollars to spend. How much of those billions of dollars will be meaningful enough for them to actually spend it and make good content in a world in which, The Office, which is one of their main shows, just left randomly, right? Like Netflix to me has to become a pure media company that makes their own content. Otherwise, they're at the mercy of relying on other people to license their content. YouTube never has to become a media company. YouTube just has to be a platform. And the beauty of being a platform is because other people use your platform because they get something from your platform, i.e. the supply and demand of attention, there's always going to be a business because people are always going to want to be able to get attention. And YouTube is the go-to place to get your videos to get attention. So I think from that perspective, the revenue of YouTube is also going to be pretty strong in the long term. A couple other stats about YouTube. 74% of adults in the US use YouTube. 2 billion monthly users. 75% of 15 to 35-year-olds use YouTube. 80% of US parents of children 11 and under say their kids watch YouTube. I mean, I know Netflix has some kids show, but goodness, like YouTube Kids is pretty big. 16.4% of YouTube's traffic comes from the United States. This is a 16.4% of their traffic. Yeah. So this is a good thing because 16% of people in the United States have a lot of, that's your traffic, a lot of that is disposable income, which is really important because people in the US obviously have a little bit more disposable income than people from other parts of the world. So the advertising is very good there. But if it's only 16%, it's also really important to recognize that means the rest of the world is consuming YouTube, and United States is just 16%, which means it's a very, very global platform. YouTube is the world's second most visited website. The first is Google, right? People watch more than 1 billion hours of video on YouTube every day. Viewers aged 18 and over spend 41 minutes on YouTube daily, and 40% of YouTube watch time happens on mobile. Like, to me, I just think it's a no-brainer. When you share a YouTube video, you like send your friend a link. No one shares a Netflix link. Like, that's not a thing, right? Like I just think at a fundamental level, the quality of content on YouTube is getting so strong that it's able to be shared, and the network effects associated with it are just so much better than something like a traditional media company like Netflix. Which is why I think YouTube takes the edge. Now, last thing we'll talk about, creator opportunity. Creators need to create, and we're entering a world in which more and more people are going to want to get their ideas out there. If that is the case, there have to be platforms that support those people. Otherwise, those people will have to get like Hollywood TV deals or like Netflix deals. And it's very hard if you're a stand-up comedian to get it back from Netflix. Why? Because Netflix doesn't care about you. They have a premium business model in which they serve content in a premium way. On YouTube, if you're a stand-up comedian, there is an algorithm that is on your side if you can figure out how to work within it. And it's not the most mysterious thing in the world. There are certain keywords you have to use. You have to be consistent. Your thumbnails have to be nice. Your titles have to be good. Do you have to put in a lot of effort? Absolutely, but it's possible. You see the potentiality for the trajectory of your stand-up career to one day be someone who can sell out Madison Square Garden. If you just chose to be a stand-up comedian and you use Netflix as the vehicle by which you would be able to distribute your comedy, you don't get that distribution mechanism because Netflix doesn't care about you until you build up your own audience. Well, where are you going to build up your own audience? YouTube. Especially if you're communicating through video, right? You're doing either Twitter, Instagram. Like, my whole point is the creator economy at scale is built for people to get attention. And for them to get attention, that means these platforms will never die because we're always going to be contributing something to those platforms in order to get the attention that we need as creators on this planet. So I think from an entertainment perspective, YouTube is just more on the side of the creator because it's one of the platforms, if you talk about it in the context of Hulu, HBO, Netflix, Prime, etc., that is actually giving opportunity to people. YouTube paid $30 billion over the past 3 years to creators. How much did Netflix give to creators? And when I mean creator, I don't mean, Jessica Alba. I mean like the random Annie Wong on YouTube. I just made that name up that like has 10,000 subscribers and wants to build a lifestyle brand. Like that is the stuff that gets me so excited when I think about YouTube because of the opportunity that's there and that's abundant and that's for anyone to have a chance to be able to crack and to be able to reach, whereas Netflix doesn't have that. Now, why is this important? Why does that mean that YouTube matters more? From a business perspective, the more that we enter into the world of the creator economy, the more creators are going to need to build communities and attention. And even if YouTube's not their main platform, they're going to need some level of attention to be able to get their career started. That means that while Netflix is always searching for premium content in the creator economy era that we're entering, YouTube is always going to just have the creators coming to YouTube in order to show that content. Second of all, in the context of competition, Netflix has to make partnerships with a lot of these creator platforms in order to get their content to be promoted in order for it to get to be consumed. So for example, when a good Netflix show comes out, you'll see a Twitter trending hashtag that's obviously promoted by Netflix to drive more traffic to the show, or Netflix advertises a lot on TikTok, things of that nature. YouTube doesn't really have to do that. YouTube is the place where people go already. So YouTube just puts it on the home feed, right? Or puts a little button in the algorithm and that shoots introduce it to more people. Like the level of control they have over how content gets distributed. Yes, is it a lot because they're a big tech platform? Absolutely. Are there censorship concerns? Sure. But at the end of the day, for the vast majority of creators, they have the ability to generate an audience. Netflix dictates everything that goes from the beginning to the end of that platform, and there is no open source to help creators get any opportunity from it. So I think in general, entertainment starts on YouTube, and even if those YouTube creators get enough attention and they get a deal with Netflix, YouTube still is the beneficiary of that because all that content was streamlined on YouTube. I mean, think of all the TikTokers, Bryce Hall, Dixie D'Amelio, Charlie D'Amelio. Yes, I know their names. I was keeping up with them a little bit because, like, I don't know, it was kind of entertaining. All that traffic they got from TikTok, they siloed it into YouTube because YouTube was where the big money was made, right? YouTube is where you actually get an audience. YouTube is where your subscribers go crazy. Someone like Mr. Beast, Squid Games on Netflix and Netflix worldwide has 219 million subscribers worldwide. And Squid Game's got like 142 million views. Mr. Beast's Squid Game version got 130 million views, and he himself has 80 million subscribers. One channel on YouTube has 80 million subscribers, and Netflix, the platform or the company, has 219 million subscribers. It has almost, more than, or about 40% of subscribers that the Netflix platform has are subscribed to Mr. Beast. That is ridiculous to me, right? And I think there's going to be more and more creators like that. There's going to be more and more people that want to be able to get their words, to get their the creative ideas out there, and they're going to need a platform to be able to do it on. And I think that's why it's YouTube. I just don't think Netflix has like the longevity in turn of YouTube. I don't think, this is not to say Netflix is going to die. This is not to say Netflix is a bad stock, because on this channel we talk a lot about stocks and investing, but rather it's about if YouTube was an entity in and of itself, I do think it goes head to head against Netflix in a very easy way. And I think as soon as the quality of content on Netflix goes down, which it's very possible just given they don't get to license enough content or they don't get to make enough interesting content, then I think YouTube ultimately wins, because creators are never going to stop putting out interesting content. And a lot of the content that people think is not interesting, like someone just walking to the store and getting, food to eat, i.e. Casey Neistat, is very interesting on YouTube because our collective attention has turned into wanting to see people do that stuff. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Yeah, I don't see Netflix as for the creator. I see YouTube as for the creator, and that's why creators are going to keep creating. I'll see you on the next one.